Okay. Can we all see my screen now? Can everyone see my screen? Okay. Okay, so the last class we spoke about HTML, spoke about how you can add tags, videos, images, tables, and forms. Now, so there was something I actually didn't teach us before going to CSS, which is actually very important, which is HTML semantics, right? So semantic HTML, John. Okay, so semantic HTML simply means using HTML tags to describe the meaning of the content inside them, not just how it looks, right? So now this is what I mean by that. This is what I mean by that. Now, if you want to build your website, yeah, every website has a structuring, right? Whenever you open any website, the first thing you see the nav bar, right? So the nav bar always carries, or the header, sorry, the header carries the logo, carries the navigation links, and then you see the content of the page, and then the last part you see the footer, right? No, now semantics simply means you using specific tags, right, to structure your whole code base. Now, instead of using generic divs, now divs, this is what I mean by div. Doing the div. Now, div is actually a tag on its own, right? Div is more like a container, a wrapper, right? That wraps items. So let's say you have Oluwatobiloba, do you have a question? Yeah, it's recording. But try to join back, maybe refresh your network to see if it can work again. Okay. So I was talking about div. I said divs are containers, right? Div are wrappers. Now you see the effect of div more when you start working with CSS, right? So div is going to help you, like you can have different HTML tags, different images, and then you can just wrap all of them in a div. Now, giving it one line of code, you can determine how you want all these items to be in your screen. You can determine if you want all these items to just move to the left part of your screen, or you want it to move to the down part of your screen, or the up or the middle, right? So you use div as a container, which is div, right? So divs are container. We're going to use it more often when we start doing CSS, right? So divs are containers. So instead of using just divs, right, or spans, semantic tags tells the browser and the developers which section of your page you actually are currently, right? So now the most used, okay, so why do we use semantics, right? We use semantics, one, to improve accessibility, right? To improve accessibility, screen readers. So most times when you build websites, you're not just building website for those that are not disabled alone, right? You're also building website for those that are disabled, those that can't actually see, right? So that they can be able to navigate their way through your website using the arrow keys and all of that. Now, semantic HTML improves accessibility. So semantic HTML improves accessibility. It also helps for better SEO, right? Also help for better SEO, search engine. Now SEO just is more like a search engine optimization, right? So when you structure your website in this semantic format, right, it is easier for people to search for your website, because now some of these semantics that I'm talking about, you have things like the header, you have things like the nav, the main section, the article, the footer, and all of that, which I'm going to explain. Now, it's also easier to read and maintain, right? It's also easy to read and maintain. So now, if you structure your code that way, if someone else decides to work on your code, by me looking at your code, the person already knows that, okay, this section is talking about the header, this section is talking about the footer, this section is talking about the main content of your website and all of that. So it makes your code to even be more structured, easier, and make it more professional, right? Because when um when you start working with people, right, you when you start working with real companies, you don't remain in that company forever. Okay, you might get a job in a company, you work with them, you build their website. Now let's say in 3 4 years time, you no longer work with the company, someone else has to work on that particular thing that you've worked on, right? Maybe modify a particular feature in the website or something. Now if your code is well structured, it makes it easier for the person to pick up, right? It makes it easier by just looking at your website. The person already knows that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what this section is talking about and all of that. But if your code is not well structured, you make it very difficult for someone else to work on your code. Okay, so that is that for semantic HTML. Now, the different tags that we make use of daily, right? Like I said, I can't teach you guys everything, but I'll try my possible best to make sure that I give you the things that I know that I personally make use of, right? Constantly. Now, the different tags, we have the header. Okay, now all these tags here, they are opening and closing. We all know what I mean by opening and closing. Where you have your header, so it's opening and closing. Now inside your header, you can now have other things, right? Like, okay, so you have your header. Now your header is opening and closing. Now the header is the top section of a page or article. Now the header often contains logo, nav, and all of that. So no matter any website that you open, right, the first thing you will see is always the what? The header. And the header carries what? The logo and the nav. Now the nav is always written inside the header, right? Now the nav carries the navigation links. Now the navigation links are things like your about, your contact, your what have you. So let me just see if I can. Okay, so this is a website, right? This is actually where we're going to be doing projects, right? This is the next project we're going to work on. I'm going to explain how we're going to work on it and all. Now, this is what I mean by a header. A header carries the logo, right? This is a logo, and this is navs, right? So it carries the logo and the nav. Now the navs, they are navigation links, which is like your explore for companies. In other websites, you see things like about, contact, FAQ, services, products. So different websites have their own different navigation links. But you one thing you have to know is that there must always be what? Header. Okay? There must always be header. Now, the next thing we have is the main. Now, the main carries the content. So everything here that you can see is actually the what? The main. Okay? minus this part. Now this part is called the footer. The footer is where you can have things like also the logo and also some navigation links. John, please mute your mic. You can have the logo, you can have copyright, you can have copyrights, you can have navigation links, you can have additional informations in the footer, okay, which is the footer. Now, we also have the section. Now, a section is like a group of related content, right? We have article, a standalone piece of content, maybe a blog post or something. We have side aside. Maybe you want to add a sidebar or extra info. Now, the section, the article, the aside are always inside the main, right? So the main wraps section, article, and aside, while the header wraps the nav bar. Okay, then the footer stands alone. So what it simply means is when you are structuring your page, you have something like this. Inside your body you have the header. Now inside the header you have the nav. Okay, so you have something like the image that carries your logo. So this is your logo. Then you have the nav. Inside the nav you can now have something like anchor tags, and you can have, let's say, contacts. You can have another one, and you can have let's just say about. Okay, you can have different links based on what your website is talking about. Now outside the header you can now have the main. Now outside the header, okay, you guys should just join once. Now outside the header you can now have the main. Right now inside the main is where you have the section. Now inside the section, please, who else can see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so please maybe you can refresh your network. So inside the main you have the section. Inside the section you can now have maybe your different tags, maybe your p tag. This is a section, something something. Then inside outside the section you can now have the article as well. Well, all these things still depends on what you're trying to build. If your website does not need a blog post or something, I don't think there's any need for an article, right? But it still depends on what you're trying to build, right? So I'll just add another p tag. This is a blog post section. Then we can still have the aside. So now this one is for maybe this is a sidebar. Now I think there's an example for aside here. Something like this. Something like these sections now. Something like all these sections now. You can put them in the aside container. Okay. This is supposed to be inside a p tag. Now after having the section, the article, and the aside, the last thing you now have will be your footer. Now remember that your footer is outside the main. Okay, so inside your footer now you can now have your other links. So the footer can carry your logo, can carry other informations, can carry links. All these things now they are clickables, right? They are links. Can carry different links, can carry copyright, can carry terms and condition, privacies, which are also links. Okay, so you can just say this is footer. So in summary, when you are doing semantics, you have three major things: the header, which carries the logo and the nav. Remember, the nav carries the navigation links. Then you have the main. Now inside the main carries the section, the article, the aside. Then lastly you have the what? The footer, that carries the logo and other navigation links. Okay? Is that clear, guys? Before we move on to the next. Do you have any question? Yes, John. What's your question? Yes, it's on record. Okay. I, yes, I don't. Because I think I noticed that. Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to explain. Okay. Is that all? Or do you have any other question? Okay. You can bring down your hand. Okay. Does anyone else have any question? Does anyone else have any question? Okay. So that means we're good to go, right? If you don't have any question, can I move on? Guys, I need you to respond. Sorry, I can't hear you. What did you say? Okay. Okay. So ask your question. For the what? For the what? Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see my? Okay. So that's that for semantic HTML. Okay. The next thing we're going to go into is going to be so before I move on to the next, I'm just going to explain to you guys how you can actually create a new folder, because I'll be given the next assignment I'll be giving, I expect you to create a new folder. I expect you to create a new folder for it. Hold on, guys. Don't go too far. Okay, so let's say I want you to create a, let's say you want to build a new project, you want to start a new project. Now the first thing you do is you go to your desktop. Ignore my desktop scattered. But then you go to your desktop and then you create a folder. Okay, so you create a folder, can right click. Now you can use terminal to actually do all these things, right? But since we are all beginners, I'm just trying to make sure that we do it with a simple method. So you create new folder. Now inside your new folder you can rename it. So let's say you rename it to um maybe the next project we want to work on is like think a food website. So then I just name it to food website. Now, so I've created the folder here. The next thing I'll do is to go to my VS Code and I'm going to click on file, right? I'll click on file, click on new window. Now, once I click on new window, now I can come to this place and close this particular one, right? Now, you click on open folder, open, this open here. Once you click on it, it takes you to your file, right? So if you created your folder in your desktop, you click on desktop, then the name of the folder and open, and that's that. So you have automatically created a new folder in your VS Code. Now you can now go ahead and do your index.html and shift one, enter, and you can start building. Is that clear? Okay, so I'm just going to remove this and I'm going to close this. Okay. So you know that if you open your VS Code, by default, your VS Code is actually going to open your last project for you, right? Which is this. Now, I've already created my folder in my desktop. I've already created my folder in my desktop, and the name of my folder is food website. Now, if I click on my VS Code, I my VS Code icon here, it's going to open by default the last project I worked on, right? Now, the next thing you do is you go to file, right? You click on file, you click on new window. Once you click on new window, it automatically open a new window for you, a new empty window for you. You click on open, then you click on either desktop or documents depending on where you actually created your folder. So for me, I created it in desktop. So I just click on desktop, click on food website, and click on open, and that's all. So automatically the folder is here. Then I'll click on this icon here and I'll write my index.html, enter. Then I can do my shift one and I can start building my project. Does that make sense? Okay. John, is it clear now? Okay, so I actually expect you guys that the next project we're going to work on, I expect you to create a new folder. Create a new folder. Okay. This is the last time, yeah? So I said that you've already created your folder, which is your food website. You can remember, you can name it anything of your choice. Now once I click on this VS Code icon, automatically it's going to open my last project by default. Okay, so once it opens my last project by default, the next thing I'm going to do is click on file. You'll see this links at the top of your VS Code. You click on file, you click on new window. Now it will automatically open a new VS Code window for you. The next thing you do is you click on open, and then desktop, you click on food website. And now I'm clicking desktop because I created my folder in desktop. If you created your folder in document, you know that you're supposed to click on document. So mine is in desktop, and then I'll click on the folder just once to make sure it's highlighted, then click on open. Once you do that, automatically it opens in the VS Code. So you can see here we have food website here. I click on this file icon to add a new file. Then I can tap my index.html. Then inside my index.html, I'll do my shift one and enter. So I can now start writing my p tags, my h1 tags, and all of that. So I believe that should be clear for everyone. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So another thing I want to explain to us is linking multiple pages. Now, I from the assignment I gave, I noticed that some of you actually created different HTML files, right? So you have your index.html, that is your bio file, and then you have form.html, which is good, that carries your form and your table. But now you did not link it properly for me to be able to see your form table, right? So I just looked at your code and figured that okay, this should work well. Now, for you to have multiple pages, right? For you to have multiple pages, this is what you do. Let's say you're building a website, and this website has about page and contact page, right? And it also has the home page, which is always the index.html. But now there's another page which is about page, and there's another page which is what, contact page. Now, for you to add these pages, right, this is what you do. So I'm just going to put at the top so that we don't get confused. Now, I'll come to this my section where I create my files, click on my file icon, and I'll add contact.html. Okay, I'll add another one, about.html. Now I've created two pages, right? Now inside my contact.html, I'll still do my shift one, enter. Now inside my body tag, right, I'll just add a p tag, and I'll say this is contact page, just so that when we navigate to this page, we actually know that this is contact page or this is about page. Now I'll go to the about also and do the same thing, shift one, enter. And I'll add a p tag, and I'll say this is about page. Please, who else can see my screen? Okay, so please, if you can't see my screen, quickly refresh back. Network is just poor, but it's recording though, so I'll just have to join them, and we'll have something by the end of the day. Okay. So we have the about, and we have the contact. Now inside my index.html, I can now add those navigation links. Now I already taught us anchor tags, right? So for you to navigate from one page to the other, you use the anchor tag. Now the anchor tag is just typing a and enter. Now I already taught us that the href carries the path where you want your link, the destination where you want your link to take you to. So inside my anchor tag, I'm just going to write contact. Okay. I'm just going to write contact page. Please, when that thing gets to 2 minutes or so, please let me know so I can create a new meeting link. Okay, so the anchor tag, I'm just going to write contacts. Maybe I'll just write contacts, just contacts, right? And then inside my href, I'm going to write the name of my contact file, which is contact.html. So I'm going to come here and type contacts. So it has already highlighted it for me here. Contact dot what html. So what I expect here is that once I click on this navigation link, it's meant to take me to what? Contact page. So I'm going to do the same for about. So I'm just going to add another anchor tag, and I'm going to say about.html. And inside here, I'm going to type about. Right? So if I click on go live, now we have the contact and the what? The about. Now, I don't know why this is showing twice. Let me just take it to home page. Okay. So we have the contact and the, yeah. Okay, let me just explain what this will do first, then I'll go back. Okay. So we have the contact and the about links here. So when I click on contact, it should take me to contact page. So you see that it says this is what? Contact page. Now if you look at this icon here, if you look at our URL here, you see that you have slash contact.html stating that this is contact page. If I go back and I click on about, it's telling me this is what? About page. Okay, so that's how you add that. So let me just quickly explain that again. Okay. Okay, so this is what I said. If you are building a website that is a multiple page website, right? So the website has different pages. It has the contact page, you have the about page. You know that the about page tells the user about your product, about your company. While the contact page, the user can see a form to be able to contact you or other contact information. Then you can also have product page, right? So the product page could be where you display your products, right? You can also have services where you display your services. Now, for you to be able to add these pages, you have to create their individual files. Okay. Now remember that the index.html is always your home page, which is the first screen the user sees once he opens your website. Now we created two more pages, which is the contact.html and the about.html. Now the about is supposed to give us information that about the page. So we just wrote this is about page, right? We already know how we did this now, which is shift one, enter. We just bring out all this information. Then you do your p tag, this is about page. Then the contact also, the same thing, p tag, this is contact page. So I didn't really add more content here because I just wanted us to see how you can navigate to different screens, right? So we have the about and the contact. Now, inside our index file is where we are going to add the links that is supposed to take us to these different pages. Okay, so it's just like in your header where you have your nav that I explained earlier. Inside your nav, you have these links, right? So I'm just going to add anchor tags here. So I'll just put the A later, which is for the anchor tag, and then I'll press enter. Now the anchor tag comes with the href attribute. Okay, now it is the href attribute that you can now write the destination that you want that link to take you to once you click on it. Okay, now inside the anchor tag, which is opening and closing, I'm going to write contact. So contact. So now I'm expecting to see a link in my browser that says contact. Now on click of this contact, it's supposed to take me to the contact page, which is contact.html. You have to make sure that it has the same spelling with what you have in your file. Okay, contact.html. Now I'm going to do the same for about. So I'll do my anchor tag again, and then I'm going to write about, which is supposed to take me to the about page. And inside my href, I'm going to say about.html. Okay, which is exactly the same spelling I have here, about.html. Now if I go to the browser, we have contact and about. So let me just add br here, which is the break, just to take it to the next line. Now we have the contact and the what, the about. So if I click on contact, it's meant to take me to contact page. So you see that automatically it says this is what, contact page, because I clicked on contact. Now if I go back and I click on about, it takes me to about. This is what, about page. Okay, so that's how it works. Now I can decide to come to the about page and add a link, just so that I'll be able to go back to my home page. Okay, so when I what if I want to do that, I'll come here and do my anchor tag. Now in this case, what I'm going to write here is home page. Now inside my home page, you know that what I'm supposed to put here is what, index.html, because the index.html will redirect the user back to the what, to the home page. So if I click on about, you see that we have the home page link here. So once I click on the home page, it takes me back towards to the it takes me back to our home page, which is the index.html. So I could simply do the same for contact, add another anchor tag, and then add home page as well, so that when the person gets to my contact page, the person is not confused on how to go back to my home page. So I'll just say index.html. So having done that, you see that when I click on contact, I have the homepage link here. Once I click on homepage, it takes me back to the main page. Once I click on about, it takes me to the about page. And if I click on the homepage link, it takes me back to what? To the homepage. So that is how you add links. That's how you add other pages to your website. You first of all, you create the files, which is can be about file, about or contact or product or services or FAQ, depending on what you're trying to build, right? And then you create your anchor tags, and inside your href you put exactly the name of the file that you created, the same way you spelled it. you put you put it there, and then automatically you've created your navigation links to be able to navigate through different pages. Is that clear, guys? Does that make sense to us? Okay. I just hope this is recording. Okay, still recording. Okay, so that is how you add links. So if you know that you created a form.html file in your last project that you pushed to GitHub, please kindly go to your index.html and what add those navigation links so that we can be able to navigate from your bio section to your form section and that. Okay, so that will be all. So I just put multiple page linking. Okay, Joseph, you have a question? Okay, so let me just create the link. Okay, you can ask a question. Okay, so if you don't put the nav tag, it will still work. Okay, like I said earlier when I was explaining semantics, I said that semantic tags are used to it helps for SEO, better SEO optimization, right? I also said that it helps to structure your code properly, helps to give any other person trying to work on your project heads up on what you're trying to do. Okay, so if you wrap it in navbar, in nav tag or not, it still works as long as it's wrapped in anchor tag. The link still works perfectly. But then that something works doesn't mean it's good. Okay, that something works in your code doesn't mean it's actually written in a professional way. Exactly now. So the nav there is just making your work look professional and giving your website a better SEO. That's all. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let me just create a new meeting link. So I'm going to paste this meeting link in the WhatsApp group. I think this recording is going to end. Guys, I'm just going to end this call and then I'll paste a new meeting link in the WhatsApp group. So go to the WhatsApp group so that you can get the link. Maybe. What happened? I thought you wanted to take a trip. So you lose money. You lose money. Yeah? I said that you lose money. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay, Paul, you're raising your hand. Do you have a question? Yes. Yeah, so if you, it depends on actually what you pushed earlier, right? So if what you pushed to GitHub is your form, right? You can decide to create, you can even decide to create a new folder entirely and a new repository entirely. But if you want to push to the previous one, you can just add maybe another file that is your bio, or make your bio your index.html, and then make your form.html. Then you can add a navigation link. You can add a link that takes you from your bio to your form, and from your form back to your bio. Then after doing that, you can push back to GitHub. You're welcome. No, it's not an assignment. You can just decide to practice it on your own. And I'm going to give us an assignment. You're welcome. Okay. So we can now into CSS, right? We can fully go into CSS. Yes, you see it now. Is it back on? Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay, so we're treating CSS now. So I'm going to give us the theory aspect. If we still have time, we'll do more practicals, right? So CSS. Now, what is CSS? CSS is cascading style sheet, right? So CSS simply means cascading style sheet. So it's just basically what you use to style your web page, like changing colors, fonts, layout, spacing. It's just basically what you use to make that your plain website look attractive, look appealing, right? Makes it look colorful, beautiful, and all of that. So it's just to make HTML look nice. Now, for you to be able to start adding CSS to your code, you need to link the CSS. Okay. Now, for you to be able to link the CSS, there are three major ways we link CSS. Three major ways that you link CSS. Now, the first way to link CSS is called the inline CSS. So the first way you link your CSS is by using the inline method. Now, the inline method, you apply the styles directly on the HTML itself using the style attribute. It is the quickest way to style something, but it is messy and hard to maintain when your page grows. So it simply means that this inline CSS is actually the fastest way to add CSS, right? And it has more power, right? But then it is very messy, especially when you're building a large project. Okay, when you're working on a large project, it makes your code look messy. But if you're working on a very simple project that's not like maybe just like I'm explaining for you guys now, you can use your inline styling. But once you're doing something good, something big, please don't do inline styling, right? It's to just make your whole code look messy and all of that. Now, for us to add inline styling, this is it. So we already have, you just have your H1, okay? You have your H1, and I'll just do inline style. Now, you use the style attribute, okay? You use the style attribute. Let me just take this out. Now, use the style attribute. Now, for you to add it, the style attribute. Now, inside the style attribute, you have your quotation mark, right? Inside your quotation mark, you can now add your CSS. So for this H1, we have a color green. So this is what I'm saying. You have your H1, right? So you write your H1, you press enter. Then maybe you can now have something like um my name. Okay, you have a text called my name, right? Now, for you to add your inline styling, you come to your first tag, your opening tag, which is your H1. So just immediately after your tag, remember you can decide to have P. Yeah, you can decide to use the paragraph, right? Not necessarily H1. You can decide to use paragraph, you can decide to use anchor tag, you can decide to use H6, H3, you can even decide to use image and all of that, right? Now, you have your P tag. Now, just immediately after your P, still inside the tag, right? Inside your P, I'll just press enter, right? And then I'll type style. So I'm using the style attribute. You press enter. Automatically, it's going to give you a quotation mark, right? Inside the quotation mark is where you now add your styling, okay? So let's say I want to give it a color. I give it a color, then you put your colon and then the name of your color. So I could just say red. So automatically, if I go to my browser, Isaac, hold on. If I go to my browser, I'm expecting to see a color of red to my name. So this my name is supposed to be in red color. Why this inline style is supposed to be in what? In green color. So if I go to my browser, you see that we have inline style as red, and then my name as what? Sorry, inline style as green, and then my name as red. Okay, Isaac, you have a question. Isaac, do you have a question? Okay. What I explained about inline styling, is it clear or should I go over it again? I need your response, guys. Is it clear? Should I go over it again? Okay. So that is that for inline styling, right? I think it's your network. The network is poor. Yeah, the network is really poor. So maybe you can just, Isaac, try to refresh your screen so that you, maybe the network will be okay. But I believe that others can see my screen. But I'm going to upload it. But it's going to take a little time because I'll have to do some cut and joins and all of that. Okay. So that is that. Um we have the style. Yeah, right. So we have this. We have the color, the green and all of that. Okay, so you can also add more styling if you want. Okay, but that's how you do your inline styling. You use the style attribute. Now inside the style attribute, inside the quotation mark, you can have your color red. Okay, now just know that the inline styling is written directly inside the HTML tag. Okay, it's written inside the tag. But remember, like I said, it is messy and hard to maintain when your page grows. Like when you have a big project, it is hard to maintain and makes your code look messy. So that is that for inline styling. The next is internal CSS. I'm just going to do example. So the next is what internal CSS. Okay. So the next is internal CSS. So the internal CSS, instead of creating a separate file, right, you write the CSS inside the same HTML file. So the internal CSS is also written inside your HTML file. But now the styles go inside the head section. Okay, now this is useful for small pages or when you are trying to test something quickly. So when you are trying to work on a small website, you can use this. Okay, let's say you're working on um something like, maybe you're trying to style the bio section that we did. You can use something like this. But please, when you're building big projects, don't use inline CSS or internal CSS, right? It should just make your whole code look messy and all of that. So the internal CSS is used for small pages or when you are trying to test something quickly, and it's written inside the head section. So inside the head section, right, where you have your title. So inside the head section is where you write the style attribute. Okay, so I'm just going to come here and I'm going to type style, press enter. Now inside this part is where you're going to now do whatever you want to do. So maybe let's say I have, okay, so we have p tags here already. We have p tags here. So I will just do p inside the style, inside the head also, right? So I'll just do p. So you're trying to select p tags, we're trying to style p tags, right? So I'll just do p, and then I'll use my curly braces. Okay, you use your curly braces. Your curly braces is just above your it's same button with your square bracket. So if you just do shift square bracket, it will give you your curly braces. Now inside my curly braces is where I can now write whatever styling I want to write. So I could just give it color, and I'll give it so just select any color here. So let me just give it deep pink, right? So if I go to my browser, I'm expecting to see all my p tags to have a color of what? Deep pink. So you see that we have the, this is not coming down. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, so we have the different paragraphs here. They are all in deep pink. But if you notice, this my name is also a paragraph, but it's not changing to deep pink. Why? Because it has inline styling. So I told us that inline styling has a greater power over internal CSS and external CSS, right? The one that you write inside that particular HTML tag has more effect. Okay, so the inline styling for this p tag is overriding any other styling you are giving this. That is why this particular p tag is still having the red color, while others are having the what? The deep pink. So that is how you can add your internal CSS. Always know that the internal CSS is written inside the head tag. The internal CSS is written inside the head tag, wrapped with what? Style tag. So you do your style tag, opening and closing. Inside your style tag, you select what you want to style. You want to style the p tags. We're going to treat CSS selector, right? But now in this case, we're just selecting p, which is the paragraph. So we do p, then you do your curly braces. Then inside your curly braces, you can now have other colors, right? You can decide to have background color, maybe background color of blue. If we go there, you see that we've given background colors of blue. We can decide to do font size, and we give it let's just do something crazy, right? So just give it 40 pixels, and you see that it's now bigger. Okay, our text are bigger and all of that. So you can decide to do whatever styling you want to do. I'm going to treat explain colors, font size, and all of that, right? But I'm just giving us examples of how you can add internal CSS to your HTML file. Yes, Paul, you have a question. Okay, so we're going to actually treat CSS selectors, right? But now I said I just want to style paragraph, right? I just want to style paragraphs, and to style paragraphs is just p, right? Remember the way to write paragraphs is just the letter p. Okay, so for you to style them also is just the letter what? P. If I want to style anchor tag, I'll change this paragraph to a, sorry, to a, which is the anchor tag. If I want to style h1, I will change it to h1. If I want to style H6, I'll change it to H6. Do you understand? So we're actually going to treat CSS selectors, but I just want to give us an example using the tags that we already have existing. Okay, if I want to style main, I'll just come to this part and change this P to main, right? So what it simply means is that we are selecting it based on the HTML tag. There are other CSS selectors, right? But what we are currently doing is that we are selecting what we want to style based on the HTML tags. Does that make sense to you? You're welcome. Okay. Is the inline CSS and the internal CSS clear to everyone? Okay. Yes, Joseph, you have a question. Yes. So okay. So I was talking about internal CSS. I said that internal CSS is also you writing your CSS in your HTML file. But this time around, you're writing it inside the head tag. Okay, you're writing it inside the head tag, and then you are wrapping it with the style tag. So we're using style to wrap everything. This is opening and this is closing, right? Then inside your style, you can now select whatever you want to style. So let's say in this case, we're selecting the paragraphs. We want to style all our paragraphs. So I'm using P, which is for paragraphs. So I'll just do P, then a curly braces, and then whatever color you want to give it, whether you want to give it color, you want to give it background color, you want to increase the font size or whatever. But you just know that immediately you put this P here, it simply means that everything that is a paragraph in your code will take this color. Okay, there are different ways to style your CSS. There are different ways to select your CSS styling. But in this case, we're just doing the normal HTML tag, right? In the next class, I'm going to explain CSS selectors and all. But just know that for now, we're selecting what we want to style based on the HTML tag. And for this example, we are styling the P tag. We can try to style H1, we can try to style H6, but what we have majorly here is just P tag, right? So we're just selecting P, and then we're styling it and we're giving it a color of deep pink. Now, I also mentioned that every styling here is going to take, every P tag here is going to take a color of deep pink, except this inline paragraph here, because for this inline paragraph it has a color of red, and I said that inline styling has more power over the internal CSS and external CSS. So whatever styling I give inside a particular HTML tag, it will override any other styling that you are giving it outside, whether in the internal or in the external, it will override it. Okay, so that's that. So the inline styling has more power over the internal and external, but just know that the inline styling makes your work look messy and is hard to maintain. And also the internal CSS, right? Having just one file that carries both your CSS and your HTML makes your whole work look less professional. Is that clear? So that's that for inline and internal CSS. Does that make sense to you, Joseph? Okay. Okay, so the last one we have is the external CSS. I'm just going to comment this. So the last one we have is the external CSS. So the external CSS is the most recommended one. So you write all your styles in a separate file, which is the .css file, and then you link that CSS file to your HTML document using a special line inside the head section. Now this keeps your design and content separate, making the code cleaner and easier to manage. Okay, so in summary, what you're just trying to say is that you don't write your CSS inside your HTML file, you create a separate file for it. And for you to create a separate file for it, you go to your file section, you click on your file icon, and you can have anything. You can either have index.style. Most people prefer to use style.css. Sorry, you can have index.css. Okay, sorry for the confusion. You can have index.css, but most people prefer to just have style.css. Now for CSS, it doesn't really matter what you name it, as long as you have .css, it's going to work. But remember, for index.html, you must have index.html because that is your what? Your root file. But for CSS, whatever you name it works as long as you have your .css. So I'll just have style.css. Okay, so style.css means I've created a CSS file, which is the external CSS. Okay, what I'll do next is I'll go to my index.html and I'm going to link it inside my head file. Okay, so inside my head file, most times it's preferable that your linking comes before your title. Okay, so I'm just going to do it above the title and I'm going to type link. So once I press link, enter, automatically it's going to generate two attributes for me. The first attribute is relative, meaning style sheet. So this relative here is trying to tell you that, hey, what you're trying to connect is a style sheet. Remember, we said that CSS means cascading style sheet, right? So what this line here is trying to say is that what you're trying to connect is what? A CSS file. Now this href carries the name of your CSS file, exactly the way you created the CSS file. You write the name there. So inside there, I'm just going to type style. So it will just bring it out here for me, style.css. So by doing this, automatically I've been able to connect what? My HTML file to my external CSS. Now let's say I want to style something different. Let me just add H4. I don't think we have anything H4 here. Let me just add H4 and I'll give it, this is H4 text, just so we know what we are styling exactly. So this is H4 text. Now I'll go to my style.css, and just like we did for the internal CSS, I'm going to select H4, right? So I'm just going to do H4. Now the only difference between external and internal is that you don't wrap it external, you don't wrap it with your style again because you've already created a file called CSS, right? So I'm just going to do H4, my curly braces, and enter. Now inside my curly braces, I can now do whatever styling I want to do. So let's just give it a color of let's say we give it a color of yellow. Okay, maybe a color of gold. Then we give it a font size. So font size is just used to increase the font, right? So I'll just give it 40 pixels, and just so that we'll be able to differentiate it well, I'll give it a background color of maybe blue, just so we know that we're actually styling the H4 using the external CSS. So if I go to my HTML browser, you see that we have, this is what? H4 text, and we have the blue background and the yellow text, the yellow color. Is it confusing? Is it clear? Oh, now you have a question. John, do you have a question? I shared my screen on your network. Okay. Um. Okay. Does anyone have any question before I go back? I should start over from where? Okay, so for the external CSS, yeah? Okay. Okay. So I said that for the external CSS, now I said the external CSS is you creating a separate file called .css. So it can be anything .css. It can be about.css, can be contact.css, can be form.css, can be home.css, index.css, whatever you do, just make sure you have .css attached to it, right? So you create a file called, so yeah, I created a file called style.css, right? And now for me to be able to link this style.css to my index.html, you link it inside the head tag. Okay, now inside the head tag, now it is often preferred that you add that your link above, you add that your link above your title, right? So just above my title, I'm going to type link, right? So once you type link and you press enter, it will automatically bring out these attributes for you. So we have the relative. This rel here means relative, and inside the relative we have style sheet. Now cascading, css simply means cascading style sheet, right? So by having this here, it simply means that what you're trying to add, what you're trying to link is a css file that you're trying to link. Okay, now inside your href is where you can now have the name of your css file. Okay, you can have the name of your css file. Remember, you can have so many css files, right? So inside your href, you can add the name of your css file. So for this case, we have style.css. So we have our style.css. So by doing this line 6 already, you have automatically linked your css to your html file. Okay, now I want us to style something different because we've already styled the p tag from our internal css. So I want us to style something different, and then I created h4 text, right? And then I said h4, this is h4 text, so we want to style just this h4. Okay, I want to style it in our external css. So I'm going to click on our external css file, and inside our external css file I'm just going to type h4 because that's what I want to style, and then I'll do my curly braces and enter. Now inside my curly braces is where I can now have the styling, right? So I can add a color. So I can have a color and just name it, maybe I can name my color, okay, let's just give it gold again. Then I can add other things. Maybe I want to add background color. I can have a background color of red, of brown. You can have, We can have font size. Now, I don't want you to get overwhelmed with all these things, right? I'm going to try my best to explain it for us so that we can understand it better. But just know that here I'm just trying to add things so that you can actually see that we are styling this H4 using the external CSS. So when we go to our browser, we're expecting to see our H4 with a color of gold, a background color, and a font size of 40 pixels, right? So this is our browser, and we have this here. So it says this is H4 text, which is our H4, and we have the color and the background color and all of that. So is that clear? Does that make sense to us? Okay. So lastly, I'm just going to explain which should you use, right? So I know I've actually explained it while I was trying to explain the different linking. So which should you use? For real projects or anything professional, please use external CSS. Okay. For small demos or beginner practice, you can use your internal CSS. For things like maybe for one-time changes or debugging, maybe you're trying to style a particular something and it's not styling, you can try to do inline styling. You can try to do inline styling just for you to be able to know where your problem is coming from. So inline styling can be used for your debugging or one-time changes and all of that. Okay. But just know that, please, for the project I'll be giving you, it's important that you use external CSS, right? For your projects going forward, you use external CSS. But for today assignment, you have to practice all of them. You have to practice the different styling. Okay. Do I have any question before I give us our assignments? That will be all for today. And we have class tomorrow, same time. Yes, John, you have a question. Babe, please, I need water. Babe, please, I need water. So debugging simply means you're just trying to resolve an error, right? So it's just you resolving an error. Let's say you're trying to style a particular something and it's not styling. You've tried your best, it's not working, right? So you're trying to debug, just like how we have bugs, they are not needed. Bugs are seen as a developer. Bugs, once you have bugs, it simply means that you have errors in your code, or you're trying to implement a particular thing and it's not implementing, is a bug. You get? So but then when you try to resolve that error, it means you're trying to debug that error. Exactly. Okay. Yes, Lawrence, you have a question. Lawrence, do you have a question? We can't hear you if you're speaking. You're muted. Okay. So for our assignment, it's going to be a very simple one, right? Since we're going to still have class tomorrow. Now it's after our class tomorrow that we're going to do something bigger, right? But for today's assignment, it's very simple. Just what I need you to do is go to your bio, right? Go to your bio and then your probably your form, right? Now I need you to add um colors to it, right? You don't have to do anything serious, right? But you can still do if you want. I've already sent a resource for that W3 school. You can go to CSS and then learn one or two there, right? Because remember, I can't teach you everything. You have to do your own research. You have to learn on your own as well. So then the assignment is just for you to style what you did in your bio, right? So you're basically just adding colors. You're not doing anything serious. You're just adding colors or maybe background color and the rest, right? So that's just that. Just add colors to your bio or your form, whichever one you want to do. Just add colors to it and push to GitHub. You can decide to add to the both and do your linking. Okay, so okay, just add to the both, add colors to your bio, add colors to your form, connect the both of them, right? Using your linking that I taught us, right? Connect the both of them. I should be able to move from your bio to your form, from your form back to your bio, and just add colors and push to GitHub. That should be the assignment. Is that clear? Okay. So that'll be all for today. If we don't have any question, I'll see you guys tomorrow by 8 p.m. Who is speaking? I gave an assignment the last class for you to create a form and table, video and audio. Did you not do the assignment? Okay, so if it's in the same file with the bio, I expect you to create a file called form.html and then move your form contents to your form.html and do the linking. Yeah. Okay, that'll be all, guys. Do have a wonderful. Yep. If you want the old code, you just follow the same process. So if you want the old code, right? This is my VS code. If I want to open a previous code, I'll still follow the same process. You click on file, click on new window. It takes you to a new window. Now you see recent. The recent is going to show you the different folders that you opened previously. But if, for instance, is not here, right? If the folder you want to open is not here, then you can click on open and then search for it. Do you get? Search for it, click on it and open it. You're welcome. Lawrence, do you have a question? Okay, so if there's no question, I'll see you guys tomorrow by 8 p.m. Have a peaceful night rest. Oh, fuck.
testimony. I had somebody around me that the person was actually irritating because of his attitude.
You want to
The
finish?
person is
You want to
somehow,
finish our money?
you know,
You want us?
arrogant and
Want
all
us to
that.
drink Gary? Our Gary said almost
I was
finished.
actually feeling irritated.
Which one be better with the other money?
But when the Lord
So
began
now you
to
dey find
speak some
$10
things,
to raise it.
alongside
Now we have
so many
$12.
and
Yeah,
keeping people around, not saying that
it's not $12.
something
I
happened.
put
This person came around
yes.
and I gave him a chance. I treated him with honor, brought the person close, and the Lord used this person to open it for men access. Men access. I pray tonight.
I don't tell you say
You will
if
not
you search
miss
that thing,
your
tell me
divine access.
say
In
this
the
is what
mighty
you
name
use
of
my
Jesus
phone.
Christ.
Set it also in my
Open your
phone.
mouth and pray. Oh,
Yes,
Kus
now set it
Watisha.
also in my phone.
Rebarina Motonzi Hasta. Open your mouth and pray. In the name of Jesus.
The
In
phone is
this
also in my
season
phone.
of supernatural open doors, I will not miss every